we'll first start by thanking the Diana Initiative and the conference organizers. This really has been a very well-run conference, and I've done talks at a few and have never felt this kind of love and this kind of support. So thank you all for that. So they tell you when you do a presentation that you're supposed to start with a controversial statement. This also works for master's theses and PhD dissertations if you're doing something like that. My guess, however, is that my controversial statement of the day is not going to be terribly controversial in this room. And that is, for a very long time, we have been approaching user awareness about phishing all wrong. So similar to the story that Eva told you, many years ago, I met a co-founder of an email security company. And this person had spent 20 years, their entire career, dedicated to understanding the threat vector that was email. That person also admitted to me that they knew that if someone wanted to get them to take an action, to click a link, to download a document, it might take time, it might take money, it might be hard, but they would definitely fall victim to it. So today I want to explore replacing one of these marquee aspects of our security awareness programs, that is the shame-based phishing simulation, with something a little more positive, a collaborative security drill that could hopefully transform an organization's security culture, making it stronger, more resilient, and actually effective. So I've been doing information security work for a long time. If you ask my kids, it's been at least 2 years, maybe 3, could be 5, I don't know. When I think back about the beginning of my career, I actually ran sting campaigns on behalf of my consulting clients. I remember spending hours designing my fake business cards, building these glorious backstop websites, and practicing introducing myself with my undercover name. Funny story, when you're doing this kind of work, they tell you, always use your real first name and make up a last name, because that way if one of the people that you're doing a sting op on sees you in a hotel or in a restaurant someday and they yell your name out, like you'll turn around and acknowledge them. I was watching the pilot episode of a TV show a long time ago, and I nearly fell off the couch when one of the main characters introduced themselves with my undercover name. So I'll let you all try to figure out what show that was. I'm pretty sure I didn't do a sting op with any Hollywood types, but I don't know. Anyway, my journey from running those kind of gotcha campaigns to trying to do something a little more collaborative has shown me that there is a better way to build resilience. So I've been running a small security team at a small startup for the last 2.5 years. I used to run a really big security team at a really big post-startup. And I have done all of the things that we're going to talk about today. And I've always thought that it was fun and cool. And then I read this blog post by Matt Linton that said, maybe we should change the way we think about this. And so I take absolutely no credit for the actual approach I'm going to talk about today, but I'm hoping that you're going to take away how you might be able to bring this to an organization that you might be a part of. And I really love it, and I just want to spread the word. So let's jump in. Unlike the way that we train for other disaster situations, phishing simulations, as Eva said, weaponize deception against the people that we call friends and colleagues. So I think we have to think about how that makes them feel. And the word that comes to my mind is shame. When I think about shame, there's been a whole bunch of psychological research on shame and guilt and how these things show up and what we feel when we feel those things. But Brené Brown, I think, said it incredibly well, which is that shame is, quote, the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love, belonging, and connection. It corrodes the very part of us that believes we are capable of change. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that if I tried to show up for work feeling like I was incapable of change, then I wouldn't quite work at the place where I work. We're all on journeys of growth, and we're all trying to be better at what we do and who we are. And so if we really want people to change the culture, if we really want people to think differently and positively about the security posture of their organization, of their families, of their lives, then I don't think shame is the way to do it. So it's really strange to me because what we do here with these simulations feels unique. Obviously, there are some security professionals who break in to physical locations and try to test defenses. There are red teams that break into our systems and our software. And I think that in a lot of those cases, we don't actually expect anyone to catch them. We don't expect things to stop them. We expect them to find ways around the controls that we've put in place. And we definitely don't give them live ammunition or tell them to go implant malicious software on our systems and see how badly it breaks. So I don't understand why we think that using true, real, legitimate psychological manipulation is a good way to harden our employees against the threat of phishing. If you wouldn't set a fire to test whether or not people want to get out of the building and avoid the fire, then why would you take a message that you know is harmful and damaging and send it to them and then say, oh yeah, by the way, that was just a test? It doesn't make sense. And ultimately, we've achieved the opposite of what we've set out to do. I have met a lot of new employees in my job right now. And every time I meet them, when we say, hey, I'm Aaron, I run security, and they say, hi, I'm John, I just started in the sales team. You don't have to worry about me, Aaron. I came from a cybersecurity company. I don't click on anything. And I'm like, wait a second, John. All day long, you are corresponding with our customers. You are out there talking to them about what we do. You're trying to sell our product. You have to be communicating with them. How do you do your job if you don't click on anything, if you don't trust email? It doesn't make any sense. There's also a company that I work with that they are currently doing some simulations, and there are individuals, like a very countable number of people, countable on one hand, that are very, very overly zealous about tagging messages as phishing and sending the note to the security team, to the point where, I mean, I don't think it's really working because it's a reasonably large company and there's only one person that seems to care. By the way, I would ask you, how many people do you think actually know the difference between bulk email, spam, and phish? Because I see a lot of people click the report phishing button on messages that are mailing lists that they may or may not have subscribed to at some point in the past. It's definitely not what they think it is. So if an organization needs to run on external communication and collaboration, but the people are so afraid to use the tools that they've been given, or they don't know the real quality or capacity of the danger, I don't think that works. Because it also shows me that I don't actually believe that they know what to do when bad things do happen. And I think we need to find a better way. So if you go back to your childhood, you might be able to figure this out. I live in California. That means I need to know how to react if there is an earthquake. But I haven't always lived in California. I didn't grow up in California. So I don't really know if what I'm doing is right or wrong. It's like what I've learned from YouTube or reading, the California emergency management guide to what to do in an earthquake. My daughter, on the other hand, has grown up in school in California. And she innately knows what to do if there is an earthquake. It's not because she watched a video when she started in kindergarten or was given a pamphlet or had somebody lecture a slide deck in front of her. It's because she has teachers that drill constantly on what to do in the event of an earthquake. And it's not like school is telling her, okay, let's pretend there's an earthquake. Hey, you didn't do it right, Timmy. They're saying, let's be positive about how we educate people, how we help the students learn how to react appropriately. So if this is all true, then we have to ask the question, why in the heck do we do the thing we're doing that causes people to feel bad and doesn't really do the thing we want? Well, I would posit that there are some good reasons. Some of the time we have to do this in order to get a compliance checkmark. There are frameworks that say you must run phishing tests, but I don't think you have to do it in the specific way that the tools that have grown up around that compliance requirement have actually done. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if you think that phishing simulations actually worked, but by all means, come talk to me after the presentation. Maybe you have great data that I haven't seen, but I don't think it's out of spite. I don't think it's out of malice. I think maybe that it's out of a little bit of laziness, and that we just haven't really taken the energy to do the right thing. Because we know it doesn't work. We know that when we take specially crafted messages that are designed to be the best versions of themselves, to be the meatiest of the meat, something like, I don't know, your W-2 is ready. You want money, right? You need to pay taxes. We pick these avenues that are most likely to garner a response and appeal to a base desire, to manipulate people into doing the thing that we're trying to teach them not to do. We're also teaching people to be aware of the wrong things and look in the wrong places for them. Attackers have evolved. We've moved away from one-shot phishing. We've moved to like multimodal WhatsApp, LinkedIn, SMS, MMS, and multi-stage pig butchering type attacks that we're not actually preparing our people to deal with. So on that note, I keep looking for quotes in this presentation. So the philosopher and hockey legend Wayne Gretzky says, you have to go to where the puck is going, not to where it has been. And so if we don't move on to meet attackers where they are, if we don't train people to use the knowledge that they have in different situations and evolve, then we're not going to help our people actually grow. We're not going to change any of things in our organizations that aren't working. And if that's not enough, the craziest thing in my mind about phishing simulations right now is that we have to twist ourselves into these pretzels in order to actually make the tools and the messages work. We're creating an artificial environment that doesn't reflect our actual security posture. I mean, one of my common refrains is, if I had an hour or $1 to spend on email security, I'd put it towards strong authentication. I know that people will inevitably click on whatever links, they will download whatever documents, they will do the thing that I want them to do that is a bad action. I will never 100% prevent that. So I want to move on and invest on securing the next hop in the chain. What is it that this phishing email is trying to get at? What is the behavior that I can actually work on protecting people against? And if that's not enough, well, the research just shows that this doesn't work. People keep clicking on links. Organizations still fall victim to breaches due to credential theft. And in the quote unquote best case scenario, people just avoid clicking on anything in an email, or at least that's what they tell me they do. So here's another story. I had a senior leader in an organization buy gift cards for my CEO. Twice. The first time, they knew it was a scam. The second time, I mean, they had to know that it was a scam. This is a very smart person, very successful, highly capable. And it's not like I didn't do specific training where I had my CEO and many other senior leaders in the company do a video that I cut together. And then over the course of many weeks, I rolled out these videos specifically about gift card scams. So something about that awareness program just isn't quite working. And we know from the research, again, maybe you have better data, but we know from research that's been done that running phishing simulations and looking at click-through rates and the things that we continue to do not have a positive effect on the culture in the organization. They don't stop it from happening. So, what does happen? Well, I can attest to when I was young and thought that this was the coolest thing ever, and I ran a simulated phishing against my organization. In the 2 to 3 weeks after the simulation ran, my SOC got overloaded with reports of potential phishing messages. And when the SOC gets overloaded, they start telling people not to report everything. They try to educate on what's the difference between spam and phish, and something people don't quite understand and they can't grok. And so then they say, well, don't worry about reporting it. It's fine. Just delete it from your mailbox because we don't want to deal with it. So they get mixed messages and they throw up their hands and they don't know what to do. And ultimately, you have created the dysfunction that you've been trying to prevent. You've created a culture of skepticism about the security team itself. You haven't taught people how to actually react if something bad happens. And you certainly haven't taught them to recognize what a phishing message is, because that receipt from Amazon for the thing that they just purchased, but they didn't realize they purchased it in their work email, they thought they purchased it in their personal, that's not phishing. So is it any surprise that with the deck stacked against our people, they don't want to sit with us at the lunch table? Shame is that feeling that prevents you from learning. So when you put your colleagues in this frame of mind, can you blame them if they don't want to report those things to you? Okay. What am I going to do about it? Let's talk about how we can move ourselves out of this toxic mode of thinking and into something that can actually help change the dynamic in our organizations. What we want is for people to exercise their brain muscles in a safe space where they can internalize how to react in a challenging scenario. Training is about building reflex. You work through something, you make your body respond faster to the stimuli than it otherwise would. So if you've ever tried to learn a new skill like piano or martial arts or painting or sewing, I've done all those things very poorly. You probably approach it from the mindset of festina lente, make haste slowly. This idea got popularized more in a book, The Fifth Discipline, as faster is slower, or you may hear you have to go slow to go fast. Whatever it is, the idea is to build the foundation of your responses and then slowly work up to full speed or sparring or whatever it is. That's the way to train yourself so that in any scenario, the neurons in your brain fire faster, think clearer, and you don't have to stop and wonder, oh, I saw that as an email, but now it's an SMS, and so I treat it very differently. That's why we start emergency situation training early. We need a lot of repetition in a safe environment where the point is to get better as a community. We want to drill, we want to test, we want to do it from a young age so that you don't have to try to retrain your brain or your body for new stimuli and new responses. And I think one of the things that in my life and my job I have forgotten a lot of is not everybody comes into an organization knowing all of the things that I know now. And the time, when someone is graduating from school or getting out of a coding boot camp and coming to work for the first day, they don't innately know how to be an employee. They don't innately know what all of the risks are that you might know because you might have encountered them already. Now, more and more in this world, we're encountering these things in our normal lives outside of work. So maybe as time goes on, it won't be as true. But then we have to push this to school, and we have to work with our teachers and our boards of education to teach our students about these kinds of dangers. And we have to do it as parents as well. So if you think back to that first grade school fire drill, while the student, right, or the intern or whoever, may not have known that today was going to be fire drill day until you saw the fire engine pull up outside the window and you said, why is the fire engine here? Your teachers certainly did. Your teachers knew what was coming because that allowed them to focus on making themselves as effective as possible in getting to the ultimate goal. We don't want anybody to die in a fire. If the teacher knows that Alice is always a conscientious listener and has no problem leaving her things and walking away when the fire alarm starts to ring, but Bob is probably sitting at his desk eating paste and sticking crayons up his nose, the teacher can focus on how she's going to get Bob motivated as quickly as possible so that everybody is safe. That's why we want to know. That's why you don't want to surprise people. You want to tell them blatantly, straight out, so that they can be ready for what comes next, the learning. So I don't want you to leave here today thinking you have a kindred spirit in somebody who hates phishing simulations. I'm going to give you a pitch. I'm going to give you a pitch that would work against someone like me, and that you could probably use to actually shift opinions and do things better. I don't think that this is any harder than doing phishing simulations the way you might be doing them today. It's just a tweak on the model, but it comes with a big bang. So the first thing is, how do you frame a drill? How do you get people into that mindset that something is coming and that they are safe to act on it? A few months ago, I guess more than a few months ago now, I did my first drill. It was directly modeled on an email that the accounts payable team had received. One of the very standard, there's this long line of responses and replies that make it look like one of our executives had signed a deal with some vendor, and now that vendor has passed their invoice off, and you just need to pay it. That, in my instance, it was, we have multiple layers of controls for paying invoices. So it worked really well. We didn't actually pay the invoice, but it got to my desk. And I don't think it should get to my desk. I think it should have stopped way sooner than that. So I decided this was the opportunity to do a drill. I took that email and I pointed out some of the key features in it that I wanted people to understand. I put at the top of the message in the subject line, this is a phishing drill. I'm here to help you. All I want is at the bottom of that message, it says, report me. So if you read the message and you looked at some of the highlights that we put in, the little post-its and comments, you would report that email and you would tell us something that you learned, either that you didn't know or that you already did know, but really just getting people to think about how they're interacting with these messages. I think it also solves the problem if you do this right as a drill. You can do it multimodally. You don't have to use email as the only vector, even if email is the only thing you know about the person. Like you don't have their phone numbers, that's fine. You can make an email that looks like an SMS. It looks like a WhatsApp message. It looks like a video. One of the best attacks that I have seen in the last year was a WhatsApp audio message using a voice simulator that sounded exactly like one of the executives in my company. And all I did to turn that into a drill was I took the audio file, I wrote a Slack message to the leadership team channel, and I said, hey, this is a new phishing drill. Be on the lookout for stuff that sounds like this. And I got thumbs ups across the board on the message and a bunch of comments about, oh my gosh, people are doing this, I didn't even know. And now they know. So you are going to have to measure success. That's something that I think is very important for any of these kinds of initiatives. So I'll give you a framework for that. I think there's a metric that you have to have, and there's a metric that I think actually drives change. The one that you have to have is the % of people reporting. For starters, it is a measure of how much of the company has mastered third grade reading comprehension. That's really important. But more than that, it gauges your overall partnership with the rest of the company. If people are reading your messages and taking action, you're winning. Beyond that is measuring the speed at which people report. That's interesting because it gives you information that you can use to improve your program and drive higher engagement. Spending your time trying to make awareness training more engaging by hiring cameos or by switching to some cartoon-based platform is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. They're fun. But it won't actually surface the issues that prevent colleagues from engaging with you. So if you try these drills and you ask for feedback in line, you are very likely to learn things like, I was confused about how to report a phishing message. I don't know if I'm supposed to do it in Slack in like the Ask Security channel, or if there's a button, or if there's another button, because I thought there was another button that was in the training 3 years ago. That's the only one I remember. Like, it's a critical unlock for this method of awareness training. If you take nothing else away, take away this, there's no substitute for actionable feedback. All right. So let's wrap it up and put a bow on it. Controversial statement. Stop punishing your colleagues for doing their jobs. Start helping them see the true risks that are out there and teach them how to be resilient in the face of them and their inevitable mistakes. Teach them that we are all human and we are all in this thing together. And we are helpers and you can trust us. If you take the approach that I've tried to outline here, you meet people where they are, technically and socially. You'll harden them against threats on every vector, teaching them to be healthfully skeptical. You'll help them in their professional lives. You'll help them in their personal lives. You'll show them how to recognize a scam wherever it comes from, whatever mode it comes in, whoever it targets. Shifting culture comes from repetition, reiteration, repetition, and repeating things, both successes and failures. I think it would be a terrible mistake to try to make a leaderboard of people who clicked on the latest simulation. You gamify that and you just add insult to injury. But with this framework, you actually could share in departmental success. You can actively reward good behavior. You can talk about the things you're changing, specifically because of the engagement people have with your campaigns. Why did you move to that new training platform? Well, we got a bunch of feedback that the old one wasn't doing its job. It wasn't showing you the different modalities that you could be impacted on. Why did you remove that button and move it to this one? Well, we got feedback that we had too many buttons and nobody knew how to report things. I think that if you walk this path, you will see a culture shift. I frequently tell compliance teams I work with that I am allergic to aspirational policies. I believe a policy book should reflect the things you actually do, and anything else is a risk. I think in a similar vein, your company values cannot be a set of aspirational statements. They have to be a reflection of the culture that you've built. If you build a culture of fear, you may find your organization ultimately valuing avoidance and risk averseness and stifle creativity and fun. Gosh, I want to have fun. So I would implore you to err on the side of curiosity. Don't get me wrong, I don't think that those of us who do phishing simulations want to hurt our colleagues. I think most leaders who let these things continue are more lazy than they are evil. But I think most leaders want to show that they are valuable to their organization. They want strong relationships throughout. And I think most of them are willing to work to earn the trust of their colleagues. So if you are currently working with a leadership team or working for a leader or starting in a place where you don't think that they value that their job above all else is to instill the appropriate culture in the organization, then I would challenge you to challenge them with something like this. We all have to be great at our jobs. We all have to be good practitioners. We have to take care of the technical needs of our organizations. But after that, we are culture bearers, and we have to take that role seriously. We have to recognize that if we prioritized safety over productivity, we'd probably be a lot more productive. I promise you it's not a trick. When you bend their ear and they lean in to listen, this is your roadmap for the conversation. 1, we take something we recently had to deal with in a live environment. 2, we see how many people read it and respond appropriately when given the appropriate initial stimulus. 3, we try it again. And if you do that, then pretty soon you too will be a deputy phishing fighter. Thank you for your attention today. I have some stickers here for anybody that wants them. I have opinions for anybody who needs them. I want to thank the conference organizers again. And now I'm going to go sit down there. I guess we have questions. Or if we have questions. We have time for questions, right?
Yeah, we have time for questions.
Okay.
I have some questions. So I'd like to know if phishing drills are different from phishing simulations.
I think they are. I think that the core difference is that a simulation comes at you pretending to be a regular email. It doesn't demarcate itself as anything. It just says, here's your bonus. Click through this link to go get the details. And you click the link, and then you're taken to a screen that says, this was a phishing message. Here's some training so that you can do better next time. Versus a phishing drill, which says, hey, I'm about to show you that I'm not a real message. I'm not trying to trick you into clicking a link. I'm trying to show you what about this message that is a live message are the keys and things that we would want you to know and notice about an actual attack. And then it gives you the opportunity to report it in a safe way.
Okay, so how about if that is incorporated into phishing simulations? I mean, after the simulation, you then show them where they went from.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think that if the tools that we use, that we all use to run those simulations, would say, I'm not trying to trick you. I'm not trying to make you do a thing, like click a link or download a document. I'm just here to be a marker of the stuff we want you to be aware of. If you change the tools to do that, then you'd have a different experience.
I'd like to add something that I think what I love about your presentation, just as an observation and a comment and perhaps a discussion point. I believe that the key difference here is that you're not assuming that people have watched whatever awareness training that they just know, right? I think that instead of relying on assumption, you are inviting them in and making them be part of this conversation, giving that information in a timely manner when they're actually interested in reading about phishing because they're about to do a exercise. So at that point, I feel like you're priming their brain. So I like to call that soil. They're welcoming that information versus when they're sitting in rest and digest in some conference room, right? And somebody just pushing that information. It's not relevant at that time, so it's unlikely they'll retain it. So I think that that's why this approach is really powerful. So the question that I have is, what about rewards mechanisms and stuff like that? Do you think that that also fits into the model that you're proposing?
I think that you could only do a rewards-based program with this model. I don't think you can do it with the other one. I think that if you want to do something like challenge coins or any kind of leaderboard, you want the leaderboard to be. Eva gave us really great feedback. Take the page from Bug Bounty. Here's our Hall of Fame. Here are the people in this organization that saw a drill, followed the instructions, and then gave us actionable feedback. And here's what we changed about the program because of what they said. Or here's the group that seems to do really well in the drills. Hopefully it's like your accounting team or your CFO organization, right? Like the ones that are truly at high risk. But you can do that with a safe, we're showing how good you are at this. You can't do it with we're showing you what the click-through rates of these teams are, and we're putting the name and shame up on the board and saying, look, Aaron's org, oof, they do not do well on phishing tests. Aaron, you gotta do something about that. It's like, what am I supposed to do about it? I mean, think about that as a leader that is not a security leader. If you are a sales leader, what the heck am I supposed to do with that information? That's not my job to harden my team against this threat. Aaron, that's your job. You're not doing your job if my team is failing. I don't see how that works. I think that creates the exact dysfunction that we want to solve.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Great presentation.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I have stickers if anybody wants them. They're little. They didn't come out great, but I think they're cute. And if not, thank you again.